Howdy-ho, P1s, and welcome back to the KickAround. It is a special edition as NFL football has preempted the show, a radio version of the show, for the last couple of weekends at exactly the wrong time because we're in the middle of the Christmas holiday schedule crunch. So many games to talk about. Andy is busy doing Andy things, but you know what that means. You are treated to a holiday edition of one Lars Sivertson. Hello, Lars.
Ho, ho, ho. How's it going?
I'm doing good. Now, Lars ran into a small technical snafu, but instead of abandoning the idea of recording a pod altogether, we are going to move forward with not the best audio solution, but we're going to make it work, Lars, aren't we?
I think you're being very kind on me, calling it an audio problem. What's happened is I've smashed a piece of my equipment for no discernible reason. Because that is the kind of delicate touch I have. Anyone who's seen me try to sink a putt on the golf course knows, not a soft touch, this man.
What did Lars try to cram in a USB-C port that's not a USB-C
no comment.
Plug? Well, happy holidays, my friend. I hope you had a good wintry, Christmassy Norwegian holiday.
Yeah, no, I've actually just today been to see my 98-year grandmother who has confirmed that she wants a season ticket for next year's Norwegian football season as well. Granny Sivertson will not be stopped. She does require someone to drive her there now. She doesn't walk to the stadium anymore, which she did remarkably recently. But she's intrepid and will not be stopped.
That's fantastic. So did she get that for the holiday? Did she get the season ticket, or she asked for it?
No, I'm sure I'm sure my father will buy that or something. That'll get sorted. It's not very. This is the thing. Topical, isn't it, Peter? The subject of ticket prices. I mean, over here in Europe, they're not as obscene as what is apparently the norm over on your side of the Atlantic. Yeah.
Yes, for sure. Well, I did add to my bucket destination list a few years ago, going to is it Bruna? Is that her club?
Bruna, yeah.
Yeah, Bruna, going to a Bruna game with Lars's grandmama is on my bucket list. So
I was going to say something about how she's 98 and you might have to hurry, but she doesn't seem to be slowing down, so I reckon we're fine.
Well, Lars, we do have stuff to talk about, as lots of football has happened since Andy and I last got to do a show. We're also going to reveal this. We're recording this during Spurs Palace because we just have time crunch, and this is the only time we can do it. So While we were setting up, Lars was treated to an Archie Gray goal from 6 inches out.
Yeah, and it was confusing because the game had started about as well as a depressed Spurs fan would expect the game to start. They had been largely terrible, created nothing, but a goal out of nothing. Maybe this is the way.
You're up 1-0 at half, man, and you had another goal ruled offside, so it's not like you're completely bereft.
I have reached the stage in the Spurs manager cycle where I, as a fan, start to sort of disengage emotionally because I don't really think this is going to get turned around. So you might as well just kind of, start to detach a little bit and just wait for the next guy. Is where I'm at with it. But maybe the Danish gym teacher will turn it all around. I have my doubts, but we'll see.
Oh no, have we turned to calling him the Danish gym teacher now? Is that?
It's a little mean. It is a little bit mean. But,
seems like such a reduction, Lars. All right,
I'm Norwegian. I can think of many more insulting words for Danish people. Don't test me, Peter.
Okay. Will you teach them to me offline,
flat
please,
country.
Sir?
Don't trust Don't trust people from a country with no mountains, man.
Okay.
They have no soul.
Noted. Let's talk about the excellent game that took place yesterday. Chelsea and Aston Villa. Lars, I think Unai Emery is on a singular mission just to give you grief over your Aston Villa opinions.
So I would disagree with that in the sense that my Aston Villa opinions are that their position in the table is statistically unlikely, and that they've had a row of games that have been very even, and they've managed to get the coin toss to flip in their favor
11 times in a row.
Number of times. Well, but here's the thing. There have been some games that have been like that. I mean, Man United, bear witness, the game your team played against them recently was one of those in which Aston Villa were not great. They just found a win from somewhere. And in this winning streak, a number of games have been like that. But it is also true that there have been games in there where Villa have been really good. I thought they were really good against Brighton. I thought they were really good against Arsenal. And this game is an interesting one. Because this is one, if you look at just the stats, you might think this is another one in which, because Chelsea had more shots, I'm assuming Chelsea certainly generated a higher XG, but it was such a game of two halves. It was a game where it kind of shows you the limitations of leaning too much on XG and stats for single games, because you can have things in terms of how the game transpires that makes that a little bit misleading. Chelsea were brilliant here in the first half. They were absolutely wiping the floor with Villa for the first 45. And that's where you might make the point that Villa were perhaps a little fortunate just to be 1-0 down after this period of Chelsea dominance. And in the first sort of 15 minutes of second half, it seemed like just nothing happened. But something changed midway through the second half. And Villa just completely took over. Chelsea completely disintegrated. And for the last half hour, there was only one team on the pitch, really. Villa were so much better in the second half that even though Chelsea were dominant for that long, I think Villa were so much better and were so direct and were just really going for it towards the end. I don't think them winning that 2-1 is undeserved in any sense. And I would chalk that down as them showing resilience, showing gumption, staying with it, and then when Chelsea started wilting, they took their chances.
So where is Villa? You know, you have been spending quite a bit of time talking about the numbers belie with their situation, but here they are. They're sitting 3 points behind Arsenal. They play Arsenal coming up in a few days. They continue to grind out results and score really nice goals. So I'm really confused as to how. I mean, I look at what I look at the results and I go, this is a really good team. But then I think about all the things that you bring up and I go, where is the truth in all of this?
Well, let's disregard XG for a second now, because that's becoming almost like a cliche. XG is still one of those metrics that people in football will use, betting companies will use, like people whose livelihood depends on being right will lead quite heavily on XG, but fans and the media are still there are some skeptics. So let's leave it to one side and just look at the shot count, which is kind of a little bit more basic. But they're 13th in the leagues for shots per game, Aston Villa are. And in terms of shots conceded, they're 13th there as well, i.e. there are only 7 teams in the league that have conceded more. So they're below average in terms of number of shots created, below average in terms of number of shots kept out, yet they are third in the table. That is very abnormal. Like, whatever you think of using these advanced metrics that I know some people don't love, so I'll just shut up about them for now. Just counting shots. Create many shots, good. Concede few shots, also good. Villa just kind of below average in both. So it is unusual that with your shot numbers being like that, for you to be third is weird. And they have had a streak of if you go through their season, you will find many games that have been even in terms of chances, in terms of shots, that they've just somehow managed to tilt in their favor. But here's the thing. I believe in these numbers because I'm always suspicious of people who just have opinions and can't back them up with any sort of fact. That anyone can do that, and that leads you into the realm of the snake oil salesman. But so this is why I like the stats. But there's one thing that is intangible and that is hard to prove, but that 100% is a thing in sports, and that is confidence. Confidence is super important. Anyone who's tried to do anything in their life will know that, like, whether you feel confident in so doing is a big part of whether you'll be able to pull it off, right? Confidence matters. So when you go through this period that Villa have gone through, where all these games keep breaking narrowly in their favor, you build confidence. The players still feel like, we seem to win every game, no matter what we do. It always breaks our way. And I think when you have that at the back of your mind when you go onto the field, I think that helps. I think that helps a lot. So I think with Aston Villa, first of all, they clearly are a good team, right? Unai Emery knows what he's doing. They've got good footballers. They have had a number of games that could have gone either way, but they've managed to tilt them in their favor. And that has built up a lot of confidence in what they're doing. And again, some of this, just from looking at numbers and from watching the games, I would maintain, and I will still maintain, that they've been fortunate in some of these games. But I would also say, yeah, they were brilliant in the last half hour against Chelsea. They were really good against Brighton. They were really good against Arsenal. So it's not a fluke that they're doing well, but it's maybe a little bit odd that they're that high in the table.
I guess two things can be true at the same times, and confidence is something Morgan Rogers has talked about a lot during this really hot run of his of late. Ollie Watkins, I thought, when he came on the game, really was a significant change for them in his directness and their ability to play more direct against Chelsea and just kind of open it up. It was a fun game to watch, and Villa fans certainly deserve the situation they're in. They obviously have Arsenal up next, and I think that's the real test, is figuring out. I mean, it's one of those deals where if they lose to Arsenal, you could say, well, I mean, they'd won 7 and 11 in a row, or they've been undefeated in 11 in a row. It was due to end at some point. Or is it, well, they're not as good as Arsenal? And that's really what we're going to have to see play out over the course of the next few days.
Well, one thing, and this is the first instance of me apologizing for this. You might hear me hippie tapping away at the keyboard occasionally, because I'm just going to double check this. I think Aston Villa will also have a few suspensions for that Arsenal game.
They do.
From memory, I think both Kamara and Matty Cash are suspended through accumulating yellow cards, at least. So that is also a factor going into that very interesting game against Arsenal. And really, I got to be honest, I thought the first half against Chelsea, I thought, okay, this is our Aston Villa. The numbers finally catching up with them. This is this team finally turning back into a pumpkin, as I frankly, to be honest, have been expecting them to do. But of course, no, they hung in there and they found reserves of things from the bench, and they ended up just really being so much the better team in the last half an hour of the game. I thought this was really a message of something from this team. That I'm not prepared to say that they're in the title race just yet, but they're accumulating a number of points that makes, that Champions League spot. They're looking very good for a Champions League spot. Like, a lot of things are going to have to go wrong for them to drop out of the top 5 now. And that is so important for the club in terms of their finances and in terms of their long and medium term ambitions. So just huge for Palace, for Villa. I mean, what's going on right now?
The other thing that has been commented on a lot is how the season started for Villa. I mean, not scoring goals, not winning games, not getting any results for, what was it, 5 games to start the season. To really recover from that and get themselves to this position is a testament to the run they've been on. And when you consider that during this crunch, they had to go to Stamford Bridge and now they have to go to Arsenal. And if they can get anything out of that Arsenal game, that would be a major testament, which then leads us into the next conversation, which is in line with everything else that happened between Villa and Chelsea yesterday, were the fact that City, Liverpool, and Arsenal all really struggled to get wins yesterday. Arsenal has been a little bit weird of late. They've been getting results, but going into this Villa game, it's not like Arsenal's flying right now. So I think that makes this game even more interesting when it comes up in the next few days.
Yeah, it's a good point, Peter. I mean, this Arsenal are on, like you say, a funny run now, beating Wolves 2-1, beating Everton 1-0, squeaking through past Palace on penalties in the League Cup, and then a 1-0, that 1-goal win against Brighton, in which they were not super convincing in the second half. In particular, I thought they lost control of that game, and because they were in control for quite a while, but just right towards the end, I just thought they looked shaky and they weren't closing it out in the way I was expecting them to. Arsenal clearly not quite themselves, but what they do have, I mean, they are very solid defensively. That was only the 4th goal they've conceded at home all season, the Brighton goal in this game. They remain just a very, very formidable defensive team. And I'm sorry I said I wasn't going to talk about it too much, but like in terms of their expected goals, the XG against, they're on 10.6 in the first 18 games. And I mention it only because the second best defense in the league, Man City, have got 19.3. So, like, not only are they the best defense in the league, but they're almost twice as good defensively in terms of what they've conceded than the second best team. They are in their own complete world in terms of what they can do defensively, and that has held true pretty much in the last couple of games as well, even though they've had defensive absences. So I think it's one of those things. You're not going to hear Arteta get a lot of credit for this. I think you'll hear him get some, just because it's kind of boring to talk about defense. Like, we all like talking about funny formations and whatever Pep is doing with wingers and all this sort of stuff. But the job Arteta has done to drill this team defensively, I think, is incredible. And you're seeing the fact that defense is holding up even with people missing. I think that's testament to good coaching, right? Because that means the guys who are coming in know what they're supposed to do, which suggests to me that they've been very, very well drilled in training. And Arteta, because the stuff he's good at is not always the sexy stuff, I feel like Arteta continues to maybe not quite get enough credit, in my opinion, and that is unpleasant for a Spurs fan to say out loud, but it is the truth, I believe.
So where are we on Arsenal at this particular moment in the fact that the lead has dwindled a little bit? City now feels like the team that is most in form, although I think that probably in some ways is not completely fair to Villa considering their run of late. Are Arsenal likely to, do you feel like Arsenal has just hit a bit of a low spot and they will continue to be okay as time goes on, or do we need to kind of see this current run of games play themselves out before we have we're so early in the season, Lars, it's hard to say anybody is a lock to be anything at this point, really, is kind of the point.
Well, I can tell you that Wolves are a lock to get relegated. I mean, I'm pretty comfortable making that call.
Okay, fair.
But sure, because they have 2 more points than they would have had if they fielded a team of actual Wolves this season. So, I think things are not going well over there in the Black Country. But listen.
You're finally, Lars is vindicated on Wolves after all these years.
Do you know that line about actual Wolves? I was going to tread that out on Talk Sport on national UK radio on Saturday morning when we got to the Wolves segment. But then Max Rushton, the presenter, his intro into that game was talking about how Diogo Jota's kids were going to be mascots and how this is going to be a very emotional thing for all the teams. And I thought, damn, I can't use the line about Wolves. We can't. There's a level of, we can't pivot from death and tragedy to that level of flippancy within one radio question. Can't be done. So anyway, secondhand lines. There
Try
we go.
me out sometime, Lars.
Listen, it's very sustainable. It's reused material. It's very, very good for the environment. No, listen. On Arsenal, I picked them to win the league before the season. Now, and that's still where I am. And I feel like it's been a funny one. It's felt like for a while that in terms of their performances on the field, this is kind of the blip in terms of the performance, but they are still getting the points. Partially because they are so good defensively, partially because they have a bigger toolkit this season. They have more bench guys they can bring in who can do a good job for them. They've got the set piece thing that works for them. I would still back Arsenal. The only thing that gives me pause, again, is the intangible stuff, the stuff you can't really quantify, which is the sense that a lot of the City guys have been here before. A lot of the City guys have done this before. Whereas with Arsenal, they've finished second a couple of times in a row. Mentally, going into the home stretch, if it's tight between them and City, I think the mental toll will be that much greater on Arsenal because they're in a position where they've got something to lose now. They're in a position where they have a lead to defend, and they're the team who've just gotten close but not over the line before. They will feel more pressure, I think, whereas City are just kind of quietly in the background winning every single game and doing the City things. So it is a real mental test for them going forward now. The number still has them as the best team in the league by some margin, and I think in terms of open play, there's more to come from them. Kind of significant maybe that Martin Odegaard scored a really good goal in this game because he's someone who hasn't showed up enough in decisive moments so far this season. I still back Arsenal, but of course it is creepy if you're an Arsenal fan and you see the machine, the engine's kind of spluttering a little bit, and you've got the zombie army of Man City just kind of slowly kind of catching up with you. That's not fun. Don't love that. It's an awkward feeling. Angst in the discourse is what I got.
We'll talk about City here in a second, just on Arsenal. So Tuesday, they've got the home game against Villa. Then they have to go on the road 3 or 4 days later to Bournemouth, which are kind of in a desperate situation themselves. But then they've got a home game on the 8th against Liverpool, does Arsenal. So
that's an rather interesting one, isn't it?
Lots to look forward to.
I mean, very much so. I cannot stress. I mean, you've said it already, but I cannot stress enough how interesting that Aston Villa game is. I mean, that is a game that I think will tell us a lot about both teams.
It's a must-watch of all the games coming up this week. That is the one to be most interested in. Okay, so let's talk about City because you and I have had at the beginning of the season or before the season, we discussed a lot about where City and Pep were, some of the purchases they made in players, how it felt like he was going to try to do something different with this team, and how it didn't really feel like it was all coming together very well early in the season. But Lars, like you said, quietly in the background, the motor has started to hum and click and whir exactly the way that I think Pep wanted it to. It's just not the same watch that it was for a long time. It's kind of an interesting thing going on, and it's working pretty well.
Yeah, so I feel like it's been two stages of this City season, which is the initial run of positive results that they had, which was very much fueled by just Erling Haaland being out of his mind up front, and this team clearly pivoting into playing to his strengths, which we've discussed quite a lot this season, that they're pressing not as much as before. They're not trying to win the ball high up the field in quite the same way we're used to seeing Pep Guardiola teams. They're playing on counterattacks much more. The BBC had a very good analysis on their website, which kind of illustrated and demonstrated that City have scored more goals from fast breaks, I believe, so far this season than they did over the last two seasons combined. So clearly they are now they are a counter-attacking unit in the way they have not been during Erling Haaland's time at the club. And while he is an absolute thoroughbred goal machine that can score goals in any settings, he's definitely at his best when he can run into space, when he can get that speed, when you play the ball into space in front of Erling for him to run onto, because he is both faster and stronger than everyone he comes up against. So he can run away from the center halves, and once he's in front of you, you're just doomed. You can't nudge him off the ball. He's also stronger than you. What are you going to do? So playing on the counter terribly, that's what was going on earlier in the season. Last couple of weeks, I feel in particular, two things have happened. First of all, Phil Foden has really started finding his game again, which is lovely to see. He's talked about how he had some struggles last season off the pitch, I believe. I don't think he's gone into detail, but I think he had some personal stuff going on last year. He felt fatigued, whatever. He wasn't himself last season. He's really starting to look like the real Phil Foden again, which is interesting for England going into the World Cup. Gives Thomas Tuchel something to think about. Second thing is Ryan Cherky, man, having arrived on the scene and gotten injured, unfortunately, earlier in the season, kind of delaying his integration into this team. He is so exciting, and he is someone who the soccer nerds will know. He's been a talent for a long time. Since he was, I would say, 16, 17 at Lyon, the anoraks out there have been talking about Cherky as a potential world star. It's just taken him a little bit longer than expected, and it is unexpected that it's happening at City, but you can see just this guy is incredible.
Yeah, I think, to be fair, I don't want to include you in this if it's not correct, but I do feel like before the season when they signed Cherky, we all kind of looked at each other and went, how is that guy going to work in the Premier League for Pep? How is that going to work? Because he's not kind of a defensive-minded guy. He's obviously a creator and very good on the ball and everything, but the two-way effort and all that stuff that kind of Pep demands out of his players, I think, was a very big question mark. Here we are halfway through the season, and it's going just fine. He's really quite special and a lot of fun to watch.
So it's worth spending a little bit of time on this, because I think he is someone we're going to be seeing a lot. He's going to be someone we're going to be talking a lot about at City for the next couple of years. His trajectory, like I said, burst through at Lyon as a teenager and had this incredible technical repertoire. And again, one of my closest friends works in recruitment in football and has been talking about him for actual years, about how this guy, his ceiling is just, it doesn't exist. It was pretty clear pretty early that this is a guy who has a talent to be genuinely one of the best players on the planet. But for a technical guy like that, you're kind of waiting for him to mature a little bit, and to be someone who can actually, to be consistent, of course, is difficult when what you're trying to do is extremely difficult. And also to be mature in some of the defensive work you also have to do, and to be just a consistent factor in the games, rather than be a young guy who comes on and does a few incredible things. So he's always been a highlight reel player, because he's always done incredible things on the ball. But we were just waiting for him to become more consistent. And why I'm spending so much time about this is, the funny thing is, it never really happened at Lyon. He never really got to the point at Lyon where he is our number 10. We're going to hang our hat on him. We're going to hand him the keys to the team. He never actually got there at Lyon in the French league. And then he eventually makes his move. And because there was still development to be done, there was still maturing to be done, the expectation was that he would take a middle step. He would not go straight to one of the sort of 6-7 super clubs at the top of the tree. The expectation was maybe this guy needs to go to Tottenham, or for me as a Spurs fan would be great. But he would that sort of caliber of club, a club that's maybe in the Champions League, maybe fighting for the Champions League, but somewhere to take a year or two before you make that move to the very top. He went straight to Man City, to a coach who's very demanding. We know this, and there were some questions. You're right, Peter. Like, the talent is undisputed. The ceiling is super high. Will he fit in there? How does that work? And I guess now, for the kind of performances we're seeing from him, he's so much fun to watch. And I think it's working really well. And I think it works for him as well that Pep has chosen this season to decide we're not going to press as much as before. So he doesn't have to try to, like, chase the ball like peak Bernardo Silva. You know, it's okay if you want to take some time off now and again. And just seeing him... Sorry, I'll stop in a minute. I'm talking a lot now, but just seeing him try to knit these little one-touch moves together with Phil Foden around the box, you're just, oh my God, this is going to be terrifying to defend against, because they need no space at all. The sort of close control and the balance is outrageous, and he's genuinely two-footed as well, which means as a defender you have no idea which direction he's going in. He is just a nightmare to play against, Cherky, and the idea of him really clicking in the context of a Pep Guardiola team with Erling Haaland up front, that's no bueno for anyone who has to try to defend against that. I mean, that is terrifying.
Yeah, no, the goal and the assist yesterday is City did end up beating Forest 2-1. And it was, first off, I hate those kits that City have. Those might be the worst kits in Premier League history. Those are awful in every single way, shape, and form. Got to get that out there, Lars. Sorry. But this game was interesting because by halftime, it was kind of a dull matchup. City wasn't clicking very well. It was 0-0. But then they came out in the second half, and City scored very quickly. And you and I exchanged a message back and forth because that goal and Pep's reaction to that goal I thought was really interesting because it almost felt like it was a run-of-play goal that kind of felt like a set piece. That they had figured out, we're going to try to run this play because Forrest is set up this way, and it clicked, and Reinders scored the goal, Shirky with the assist, and suddenly the game kind of shifted at that point.
And it became a really good game. And credit to Forest. I mean, we're talking about City now because it's interesting because we've all been like thinking, okay, what's this new look City going to look like? It's been one of the themes of the season. But I do want to credit Forest here, who I thought were really good. And I think, again, they're not going to be down there at that end of the table for very long. They were so rapid when Hutchinson, I thought, was good one-on-one when he counterattacked. Another great game by Elliot Anderson, who was pinging passes around. Igor Jesus, who's the name of Igor Jesus, what he has on the back of his shirt is I Jesus, which I like. It's like I dot Jesus. We're very close to like this. Do you think the kit man, the guy who gets the kits ready, one day he's just going to put a comma there instead of the dot, just to have one of the best like. He would have Jesus on the back. This would be the best bit of Premier League punctuation. But no, the Forest I thought were impressive. And again, we'll climb out of there and did their bit. But this second half was really, really enjoyable to watch as a neutral. Just the technical quality of what City were doing, the genuine threat that Forest had on the counter. I could also just sense City are playing... They have a lot less control than we're used to seeing them. Like, people are countering against them, and they're so much more open than we're used to seeing Guardiola teams be. I could just kind of feel, as I was watching it in a different country on the television, it was like I could feel Guardiola's anxiety shine through the television. And I think he was talking about this after the game, how this was not comfortable at all, because it felt like whenever Forest countered, there were so many spaces to exploit. And City are not doing what they were doing 4 or 5 years ago when they were just strangling teams. They're not able to do it.
No.
And that makes them so much more watchable as a neutral. I do worry about Guardiola's blood pressure and his sort of overall emotional well-being. But they really are quite a terrific watch at the moment.
Just another Shirky moment. If for anybody that plans on going back and watching this game, or maybe somebody also saw this and just wants to revel in how good a touch this was, Shirky bringing a ball down. It's in the box. I think it's in Forrest's box, and the ball gets cleared very high up in the air, a good 30 feet in the air, and it comes down. And a lot of players at this level will just deftly pillow it into the ground and kill it. but very few people can do what Shirky did, which is do exactly that while surrounded by 3 opponents. It was remarkable. It was one of the nicest first single touches I've ever seen in the game, and it went by very quickly, and the commentators didn't mention it, but I had to go back and rewatch it. It was pretty remarkable.
And this is the stuff he's kind of always been able to do, which is why even at a very young age, all the scouts were like, "What in the hell is this? Like this guy could be anything." But then there's getting to the point where he's also tactically mature enough to play for a Pep Guardiola team is the thing that's happening now. And yeah, terrifying that is working as well as it is if you are an opponent. I think he also, I don't remember the quote right now, but he said something earlier in the season about how Erling Haaland's a good teammate because you just pass him the ball and he scores, which is the kind of thing. It's like, yeah, no, that's good. I like that.
Well, we were talking about Arsenal's run-in over the holiday crunch. So they have Sunderland coming up next, who drew today 1-1 against Leeds at home. They'll be disappointed in that. Then they have Chelsea at home, and then Brighton to finish out on the 7th.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting little run. And you know what happens? They've got Newcastle in the EFL Cup, but then after that, it's the Manchester Derby.
Oh,
so
no.
Kind of a pretty intriguing January for the citizens, but it does also feel like they're motoring along. Interesting, that Chelsea game, bearing in mind the rumors that Maresca is on the short list that City would deploy if Guardiola leaves at the end of the season, which a lot of people think he might.
Well, it certainly feels like the race for the top of the table is going to get interesting because clearly Arsenal's run over these 3 games is slightly more difficult than City's. And so we could see a shift of who's at the top of the table by the time we get out of this first week in January. Be fun to watch for sure. And the other game from the weekend that was kind of interesting, talk about a team that was not running on all cylinders, was Liverpool, who ended up struggling to get a definitive win against Wolves. And, Liverpool are up to 4th on 32 points. I'm not sure. This is another one of those. I'm not sure what to make out of Liverpool at this point.
I think big picture, I mean, this is a boring answer, but I think big picture, this is just a transitional season for them. They've made a few changes. They brought in a few guys who are going to be big players for them in the years to come. They're having to deal with the sort of Salah succession while Salah is still there. A couple of things have gone wrong for them. They've ended up dropping so far behind the league, they probably can't win the league anymore. So you just kind of, make sure you at least get the Champions League spot, integrate the team and move on. More specifically, for this game, the thing I thought was interesting was the first half. Because in the first half, you could see Florian Wirtz play the way I think everyone at Liverpool were expecting him to play when they paid a lot of money for him this summer. He showed a lot of flashes of being good this season, but this was one of the most prolonged period of him functioning in this team and looking at home in this team, I think I've seen so far this season. Another guy whose technique is just absolutely outrageous. And I do think in the next sort of 3-4 years, Liverpool will end up building a team around him, and he is going to work out. But it's just currently there's finding out what exactly the structure around him will be is something that Arne Slot has to do. And I just think in terms of in the short term, anyone who wants to say, Liverpool are fine now, they're winning games again, no problem. The last 20 minutes of this game were not good. They kind of lost their minds entirely and completely lost control of a game they were in control of against a very bad team.
I got a question. At the end of that game, and I was only half watching it, did I see correctly that Frimpong was playing Salah's position at the end of the game and Connor Bradley was behind him on the right side?
That's possible. I mean, Frimpong was kind of all over the gaff. Yeah, he was moved up at right. I mean, the funny thing about Frimpong is whether he's playing right back or right wing,
he's still playing right wing.
He's probably going to be mostly the same position. He is. You know, this whole thing about how fullbacks tend to be either center halves who didn't quite make it at center half or wingers who didn't quite make it as wingers. If that's the dichotomy, you're either a defender who's been moved out wide or your winger who's been pulled back. Fair to say Frimpong is a winger who's been moved back. It should also be mentioned at Leverkusen before he came to Liverpool, he was mostly used as a wing back anyway. So playing fullback in 4-4-2 is not really what Frimpong has been doing a lot in his life. And I think that was a little bit by design from Liverpool's side as well. I think they knew they were losing a right back who was a big part of their attacking game. And Frimpong is totally different to Trent Alexander-Arnold. Of course, he's not a passer, but what he is someone who's a really dangerous runner on the ball. Full of confidence, really good little burst of pace, great close control. You can get him into dangerous areas of the pitch and he can do stuff. But yeah, you also 100% have the freedom to just put him playing as a right winger, and he will be an interesting option up there. Do you know where he also turned up on left wing at one point? I think that was a coincidence. I think
did he?
just
okay.
But he stayed there for a couple of minutes. He was like not getting back into positions. There were a couple of times where he just kind of picked up the ball and was running at people from left wing. I was like, okay, this is a little bit eccentric behavior from a right back, but that is very much the Frimpong lifestyle. It's a shame that he's had an injury like kind of hamper his integration into this team, because there have been so many negative headlines and negative stories about Liverpool this season. But I think he's someone Liverpool fans are going to have quite a lot of fun with in the coming years. So if Sloth can figure out like where exactly does this guy fit in, but he is very good. It's just what exactly you do with him, I think, has yet to be fully determined.
Well, Wirtz's goal was really nicely taken, and again, he was starting to show the form, as you mentioned, in this game that everybody had been looking out for, and also is a signal of, hey, is it finally clicking for him? Will he start to do this on a regular basis is the big question. But Liverpool did grind out the win 2-1 over Wolves, who now remain winless. Man, it is as hard as they tried to get something out of this game, Wolves are just terrible, man. I mean, it is pretty, I don't know what else to say. It's just not good in any way, shape, or form.
No, they're not. Can I shock you and say that their numbers are actually better than Burnley's? They're sort of underlying XG numbers. But I think they are the opposite case. They're an inverse Aston Villa, right? Wolves are a team who early on in the season were losing a lot of games, but they were doing some decent stuff. Like, they weren't typically getting played off the park. Like, it looked like this could still be recoverable. But then when you lose game after game after game after game, the confidence starts to go and people start losing trust in each other, and you change the manager, and suddenly here you are, 18 games and 2 points. And it's just, what do you do?
I think the question was, I don't think anybody expected Wolves to have a great season, but I do think it will be a surprise if they end up hovering around or actually becoming the worst team in Premier League history. I don't think we had that in the cards.
It is a huge surprise. And I think a lot of it is just to do with the fact that when, it's very obvious. We've said it before. When Mateus Cunha went, like, so much of their attacking game went through him last season. So they lost him. Who are you replacing Cunha with? I mean, I guess it's John Arias, the Colombian player who's played most of his career in sort of Mexico or the Brazilian league, coming into the Premier League at the age of 27 and just has not made an impact at all. And no goals, and I don't think he's got one assist or something. Unfortunately for them, he hasn't been able to do the Cunha thing in any way, shape, or form whatsoever. And then they brought in Fer Lopez from Spain, who's also, I know there's some people who like, but again, not made any kind of impact. It's unfortunate. Replacing Cunha is, as you now know, as a Man United fan, he can drive you a little crazy. He's a little bit of a wild, little loose cannon.
Yep.
But for a team that was kind of bad and just needed someone to do something out of nothing, that was a good place for him to be. That was very useful, and they didn't replace him at all. And now, things are bad.
Yeah, I'll get back to that in a second because that's going to bring up another subject. Liverpool have Leeds at home on New Year's Day. Then they go to Craven Cottage against Fulham on the 4th, and then the Arsenal game on the 8th. So Liverpool also an interesting run over the course of the holiday crunch. Have you seen in the word running out that Liverpool has thrown their hat in the ring on Antoine Semenyo?
I think that kind of makes sense, honestly. Makes a little bit more sense to me than the United links when they were happening.
Sure.
Because they do need, I know it sounds preposterous because they spend so much on strikers. Yeah, no, they are short on attacking depth because they let Luis Diaz go, they let Darwin Núñez go, and of course we have the very, very tragic passing of Jota. And while they did bring in Ekitike as a striker and they brought in Isak as a striker, they didn't really bring in a lot of wingers. You know, you can play Wirtz out there, but that's not where he should be. So you've lost two players who were quite good playing out wide, and yeah, we see there is a little bit of a shortcoming there, or a shortage there. So a versatile winger, 2-footed, can play both sides. It would make sense.
Yeah, now I'm trying to figure out where he makes most sense for himself. Like what opportunity is the one that would be best for Semenyo, a player that I really, really like, and I don't have a really good answer for that one. Do you?
I mean, there is the possibility that he leaves, but I still think the possibility to go to City and work under Guardiola is one that will appeal to a lot of players. Because, like him or not, he is sort of the preeminent coach of his generation, and he is doing something new and interesting there. There's a risk he leaves in the summer, but then you're at Man City is not the worst thing in the world. With apologies to Arne Slot, the gravitas isn't quite the same. But it would also depend a little bit on conversations that we're not privy to in terms of what's his role going to be in the team and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, that is interesting. I mean, I would love for him to end up at United, but it just doesn't feel like it's the same kind of fit it would be at Liverpool or
That would
City.
be weird.
And it would be, yeah, I think I agree. Now, the reason why I bring that up is we were talking about Wolves and the conversation we had last year, which was, man, if they lose Cunha, they're going to fall apart. They lost Cunha and they've fallen apart.
Yep.
I'm worried about Bournemouth because Bournemouth is they haven't won a game since before Halloween. They lost again yesterday to Brighton and Brentford. And if they lose Semenyo in this upcoming window, you just worry that the wheels could really start flying off of this one pretty quickly.
So Brentford Bournemouth is an interesting one. I'm one of those guys, I don't typically put a lot of stock into head-to-head records, but this one is interesting. I think Bournemouth in their last 5 games against Brentford have taken 1 point or something ahead of this. Brentford seems to have like the hex over Bournemouth. And I think there's a tactical reason for that. I think Bournemouth, what they do really well under Iraola is that they're quite good at like laying pressing traps and trying to punish teams who try to play out from the back excessively. Whereas Brentford are so direct, and if you saw these goals, like the first 2 ones in particular, were just big hikes up the field, and a guy just kind of runs through. And I think this was a triumph of I suspect this was a triumph of like prep and tactical analysis. And I don't know for sure. I can't prove this. I wasn't in the meeting, but I suspect this panned out exactly the way Keith Andrews kind of had drawn up. Bournemouth are going to try to trick us into playing dumb sideways passes that they can exploit, but we're actually just going to go over them, and it worked. Like the goals were so direct, and it's something they've done to Bournemouth before. I think we got to remember where Bournemouth are in the world as a club, where in terms of their size, and we've got to remember that they lost 3 out of 4 defenders in the summer. They're a pretty small budget team. They're gonna probably lose Semenyo now. So when you're a team of Bournemouth's size, you're facing a significant rebuild. If you can get through that season without getting relegated, that's kind of fine, I think. So they are 15th now. They've been losing a lot of games. One other thing in terms of the challenge for the ownership of Bournemouth is that you would imagine Iraola is leaving at the end of the season, I think, as well. So depending on whether this bad run of form will have hurt his standing, which I don't think it will have. So I just think it's one of those things when you're at these smaller clubs, you lose important guys and you have to retool, and it's difficult.
Brentford, very quietly, after starting the season with a lot of concern, are now up to 8th after winning that game 4-1 yesterday. They really got over on Bournemouth. That was not a good performance for Bournemouth yesterday, but Brentford did end up winning that game. They're on 26 points. They're up to 8th place. They have Spurs next at home, by the way. The return of one Thomas Frank, who is still winning 1-0 against Palace in the 75th minute. Lars, I'll report to you as we record this. Brentford, there is some talent and interesting stuff going on at Brentford that, to your point, the directness, there is some talent left at Brentford that makes them at least fun to watch.
The hat trick from Kevin Schade yesterday was interesting to me because Kevin Schade, I remember, was an interesting player. They got him from the Bundesliga. I feel like he was from Freiburg. He was someone who's incredibly physically gifted. I'm pretty sure like his parents did athletics at a high level or something. He's one of these guys who can run really fast, jump, and is pretty strong. But in terms of like his footballing technique, not quite 10 out of 10. So he's someone who's been brought on almost like as a development project. Like there's so much extraordinary raw material with this. Can we craft this into something through like good coaching and through giving him game time? And that was a really good hat trick that you kind of saw that athleticism that he has. And again, Brentford, not for the first time, getting success by thinking just a little bit outside the box in terms of their recruitment. They saw a guy who a lot of people would see as too far away from being the finished article and said, okay, but he does have some stuff we like. Maybe we can work with that. And they've been successful. I guess they're the counter argument to what I just said about Bournemouth, in the sense that you can be one of these smaller budget teams and you can lose some guys and you can go again. I guess the difference is with Brentford, the sort of core structures of the team were still largely intact, even if they lost Thomas Frank.
Well, they have Spurs up next, like I said, who, by the way, I think Richarlison's about to have his second goal of the game called back off on an offside, because he has scored, but I think it's about to be called offside.
Yeah, VAR check. I've got the game up here now. There's a VAR check going on.
Poor Charlotte, the Pigeon Commander, foiled again.
Pigeon Commander remains one of the best nicknames in sports. I know it's not widely used, but he did declare himself once to be the Pigeon Commander, which is tremendous.
Well, after he scored the first goal that was called back due to offside, he did the little pigeon head bob thing, and I thought, oh, that's where it's from.
This is the thing. This is his signature goal celebration, is the pigeon head bob. And I think the Pigeon Commander he was flying somewhere, and they'd let him into the cockpit, and he did a photo with, like, the captain's hat and declared himself to be the Pigeon Commander. And it is,
Is that
it's a nickname that's too good to waste.
Is that a pigeon's wing on his neck that dominates the side of his neck?
Maybe it is. Maybe that is the pigeon. I mean,
maybe that's the whole bit.
Listen, he's not a perfect striker, Richarlison is, and he probably wasn't worth the transfer fee they paid for him. But I have a real soft spot for him. This might be me being a little bit fan-brainy, but I just think as a fan, players who care as much as he clearly does, you always have a little bit of a soft spot for. It'd be great if his touch was a little bit better, but I'll always there'll always be a room in my squad for dudes like him.
Fulham got a late win over West Ham United, 1-0. And what was the other one?
West Ham. West Ham.
Yeah, poor West Ham.
I'm sorry. I think West Ham are getting relegated. Let me just throw that out there. I think they're going down. I think it's early to call this, but it's just Wolves are clearly gone, and I'm pretty confident in calling calling Burnley as heading down as well. I think we can agree on those ones, and then there is that last spot, which on paper you'd think Leeds would be in real danger, but West Ham, man, they just can't do anything right at the moment, and Nuno has not had the effect that you'd expect. And losing a sort of slightly crummy game at home to Fulham to a late minute defensive
goal,
like that is
goal they gave up late. Oof. Oh, that was bad.
Stinky.
I was just gonna say, as an American, it's nice to see Jedi Robinson get back into form and shape. We need that for the national team. So I think he's one of the better left backs in the league, and he's continued to do some nice stuff for Fulham. But West Ham is a mess at this particular moment. And you threw me off when you said you thought they're getting relegated. Now that I think about it, the more you mention it, it kind of feels like that might actually be in the cards, and that would be horrifying.
I thought for sure when they brought in Nuno that this guy is like a safe hand on the till. He will get them structured. He'll get them, but he just hasn't had the impact you're hoping for. And I'm basing my relegation pick also on the fact, look at who else are down there. Nottingham Forest, they're 18th right now. They're 5 points behind Nottingham Forest, who are good and who are going to rise up the table. Leeds are not very good, but because Dominic Calvert-Lewin has started scoring chances, they now suddenly have 20 points. They're 7 points ahead of West Ham. And above that, you've got Bournemouth, who, for all of their problems, I cannot imagine that they'll get themselves relegated. Like, there are still quality players in there. They're going to have a £60 million cash injection when Semenyo goes, so they can spend it on something. And over Bournemouth, we're looking at Spurs, Newcastle, Brighton, Everton. None of these are getting sucked in. So it is West Ham, Forest, Leeds, or possibly Bournemouth if you think they're going to keep losing. But that doesn't look good for West Ham, which makes me think they might fire Nuno. They might actually panic and do another change because this math that I'm doing, they're doing as well right now. I can guarantee you.
Yeah, for sure. So, just consider West Ham had a rough run. They had to go, they had a game against Liverpool, they had the game against Man United, and then they had the Aston Villa game, and then they had the game against City. They were on this interesting kind of schedule run where they had the home game against Fulham. Now they've lost that. Now they've got a home game against Brighton coming up in a couple of days. Then they've got to go to Wolves on the 3rd, and they finish the crunch against Forest. Nuno gets an opportunity to exact some revenge. So there is an opportunity to gather some points here after going through a really rough patch of the schedule. This is kind of the soft spot, and West Ham just has to take advantage of that at this point.
That Wolves game on the 3rd is, again, if you're looking ahead to the calendar, I mean, if they lose that, if they contrive to become the first team to lose to Wolves, that's when you get into might actually fire Nuno. Just you might as well. This is clearly not working, and you're heading for relegation. You've got to try something. And this is the thing: people who own football clubs, they like to feel like they're doing something. They don't like to feel like they're doing nothing when things go wrong. And that's one of the reasons as well that managers sometimes just get fired, even if leaving them alone for a few months might be the smarter move.
Real quick, let me get back to my table that I was looking at. So Fulham, with the win, move up to 10th. West Ham stuck in the zone at 18th on 13 points. Fulham has 26 and 10th place, as I said. Fulham, by the way, have Palace. They have to go to Palace on New Year's Day. Then they have a game against Liverpool, and then a home against Liverpool and home to Chelsea, another derby game. So 2 out of 3 are derby games coming up for Fulham, and we'll see what they pull out of that. Let's see. The other thing. Oh, yes. The question you had brought up the West Ham Wolves game. Could that possibly end up being worse than the game yesterday between Everton and Burnley? Donuts.
I mean, that was disgraceful. That was a bad football game.
You got to use your favorite movie meme to me on the WhatsApp.
I mean, it is Everton, crucially, without Iliman Ndiaye, without Kieran Dewsbury-Hall, and without Jack Grealish, versus Burnley, who are terrible. That is the tagline from the much disliked Alien versus Predator movie franchise, where the tagline was "Whoever wins, we lose," and I think that is very much the case. The guy who did the comms on Norwegian TV, I actually just sent him a message and I was like, "I'm really sorry that happened to you, man. Imagine spending 2 hours of your holidays commentating on that. I mean, dreadful stuff." I'm being slightly mean about this. What I would like to say, Burnley had some chances in this game. Burnley actually, there was one noticeable. I mean, Beto almost scored a back heel. I mean, that would have been the definition of a Christmas miracle. But it was actually Burnley creating more chances in this. Slightly ominous for Everton, but I just think with the 3 guys I just mentioned out, they have no creativity really left in that squad, and that left them sort of slightly bereft. But yeah, again, Burnley.
But isn't the real
you gotta?
But isn't the real discussion here is not the game, Lars, but the news about Jack Grealish going out, not being in the game because apparently he was quote-unquote sick, but then the media find out that he went out and spent £20,000 on Christmas outing with his friends and was spotted leaving a nightclub wearing black silk pajamas after the game. I mean, at the end of all of that. That was, the black silk pajamas was the cherry on top of that entire story, by the way.
Yeah, the Jack Grealish Christmas party, I think, is... I mean, imagine. Yeah, it was on the 21st, though. So I do wonder, it's possible that this was just like an internal disciplinary thing, that they just wanted to bench him for a game as a show of like, Jack,
miserably hungover.
You can't be like, not even the Jack Grealish Christmas party should lead to a 6-day hangover. I'm sorry. Like, I mean, he's a young guy. He's a healthy guy. Like, there's no such thing as a 6-day hangover.
Okay.
Unless he went on what the Russians would call a zapoi, which is the thing. If you know, you know. Maybe Jack Grealish went on zapoi. Maybe that is what happened.
So, you'll have to teach me what Zapoy is. It sounds like the Amish version of Rumspringa, but we'll talk about that some other time.
But yeah, so Zapoy is the thing. It's a Russian thing of like a period. The dictionary definition here is a period of sustained heavy drinking leading to continuous intoxication. And for it to be a proper Zapoy, it should be like several days.
Okay.
You're not really allowed to. And the Zapoy is not just hanging out at your favorite bar for several days. It should also involve you going on adventure, like just taking the train somewhere in a state of intoxication, just going off and talking to strangers. Like it's almost like a journey going on Zapoys when you're just kind of out of there for a while. There's a definition here. I'm stealing this from Wikipedia, but it's good. It's from a French author, Emmanuel Carrère, who described it as Zapoy is serious business, not a one-night bender or the kind we partake in, the kind you pay for with a hangover till the next day, which is what we do. Zapoy means going several days without sobering up, roaming from one place to another, getting on trains without knowing where they're headed, telling your most intimate secrets to people you meet by chance, forgetting everything you've said and done. A sort of voyage is what a Zapoy is. Not typically something you would want to do in your life, but it is definitely something I think Jack Grealish has in him. I think he has that club in the bag.
I was making a joke, but it doesn't sound that far off from Rumspringa as much as I understand Amish culture.
That's exactly right.
Much. Okay, so the other thing that we got to talk about, and we'll wait for the Palace-Tottenham game to finish up, was the Friday game between Manchester United and Newcastle, which went United's way. Amorim changed formations. Dorgu scored a goal. I don't know what's happening in this world, but things went United's way. I do think the larger conversation is about Eddie Howe and Newcastle and the fact that Newcastle are in 14th. They've only got 23 points and just continuously, and their road form is really miserable, and they weren't ever really super dangerous against United, who clearly are missing all kinds of players, key players, aren't great when they have all their players, and Newcastle just couldn't get much out of this game whatsoever, and I do think that's the bigger story out of this result.
I kind of agree, and I've said this a lot of times, I'm at risk of repeating myself, but I do think Newcastle, when they're good, what they're doing is often kind of running over you with a lot of energy and like in your face, but you need a lot of energy and you need people who are super physically fit and can like win your 50s. And they're not good at controlling games. They're not really good at having their own, like their passing game has never been amazing under Eddie Howe. And when they can sort of bowl you over with energy and physicality and by playing direct, it's like they don't have another thing that they can do. Like they don't have another gear that they can shift to. And I think Eddie Howe has so much goodwill at that football club. I don't think he's at risk at all. But I think if you are like trying to, in the terms of Newcastle's journey of trying to become like a regular Champions League club, they need to develop and they need to be a little bit more sophisticated and they need to be able to get on the ball and have a slightly better possession game, I think, than what they're showing this season.
So Amorim, as we said, did exactly the thing that he promised everybody he would never do, which is change his system. And so despite the fact that now Bruno's hurt and out for a couple of games, Kobe Mainoo wasn't available, he did exactly that, and he changed and did some weird things. Now, it should be noted he switched back to his old system late in the game, and it almost caught up to him. But, I don't know how to feel about all of this going on with United because they just, they only had 33% of the ball. It's hard to make much of this result because of because of the state of the team and the roster at this moment. It's hard to be critical of them. It's at this point, you just like, dude, you won a game at home, and you won a game against Newcastle, who probably came in feeling like they were probably going to walk away with at least something out of the game, and they didn't. Yeah,
let's just acknowledge for a second that the 11 United finished with is one of the most crazy-ass thing we've ever seen at Old Trafford. I mean, that was weird. I don't think anyone ever expected United to look like that this season. The interesting point about them not having a lot of possession, was that by design? Because maybe, again, if you let Newcastle have the ball a lot and ask them to unlock you and just run the game, they're not happy doing that. They want spaces to run into. They're not very good at just moving it and unlocking you. It's something they need to work on, but maybe that was a tactical ploy and say, let's just hang back and wait for counterattacking chances. We're missing a lot of dudes. Let's just do that. But it's interesting because he did say not even the Pope could make him change his formation, and now he has.
A Bruno Fernandes injury is more powerful than the Pope himself, apparently.
Maybe Bruno Fernandes' groin, more powerful than the Pope. You heard it here first.
I think it's his hamstring. Is it his groin?
Is it? Okay.
I don't know. It's one of the. It's a muscle injury.
Fair enough.
I do.
I was just
quickly,
thinking, is there a higher authority than the Pope? I mean, he's Portuguese. So I'm assuming he's Catholic. So I just feel like for him, that should be it. Like maybe it's God himself. Maybe it went up to the boss. Maybe the boss's representative on Earth could not quite make him change formation, but he's had some kind of divine inspiration overnight. Maybe you can't really have a sort of burning bush scenario in the UK at winter because it's too cold. Like the bush wouldn't catch fire. But the UK equivalent of that, the Almighty has spoken to Ruben Amorim and just been very clear. It is time to change that formation.
Well, it did work for just long enough to end up getting the win. I do real quickly want to point out that very quietly and subtly, Aiden Heaven, the center back that they bought out of the Arsenal Academy.
It's a sign.
Yeah, good point. Hadn't thought about that. Has very quietly had to come in and start at center back for a while now. That kid is actually really impressive. He's got a bit of press resistance to his game. He'll carry the ball forward. He can pass the ball. That was a lot to say. I think that was a lot to say that I think Aiden Heaven is quietly doing what you kind of need in these situations. You need young players to step up and show themselves. And I think Aiden Heaven is doing a bit of that at this point for United at a time they really need him. That's the point I was trying to make. Sorry, go ahead.
That's good, Peter. That was nowhere near as long as my Shirky monologue from earlier. So that was not excessive talking as well. Let me just say, I'm very happy that this is the context in which I get to say heaven's been really great so far, because you think, you use that phrase in any other context, typically things have gone wrong for you, I think, or maybe very well, I guess, depending on how you feel about your time on the earth versus the afterlife.
I like the line. It's a good line all the way around. So United and Newcastle, let's see, Newcastle coming up in their run here of games. They've got Burnley. They got to go to Burnley. Then they've got Palace at home and have Leeds at home. So maybe Eddie Howe can grab a lot of points out of the next 3 games. That would be good for him. And then United, on the other hand, they've got, let's see. Let's look and see what United have coming up. They have Wolves coming up first. And after that, who is it they've got coming up after that? Hold on, I'll find it here in a second. Wolves, then that Leeds and then Burnley. So United also has a soft run now. United could really, getting themselves up to 6th, I think, at the moment when we're talking. United could collect a lot of points. Home at Wolves, on the road, Ellen Road against Leeds. That's going to be a hard one for them because that's a big rivalry match. And then Burnley, Emran can collect some points while he lets Bruno heal up.
So you know what's about 3.5 minutes away from happening? Tottenham overtaking Newcastle in the table. Sir Edward of Howe's Newcastle are heading into the last match day of the calendar year, 14th, behind a Tottenham team that has been some hot garbage all season. So this is kind of bad for Eddie. I think, again, so much credit in the bank. I don't think he's in any danger, but it's not great.
I can't believe you actually said that live while we're recording this and jinxed it, because there is time left and Palace have a throw in deep in Spurs half. Have you jinxed your own Spurs? And
I'm watching an online, legal, I should stress, online stream of this, but it is slightly behind, so I didn't know that we were in a perilous sort of defensive set-piece position.
Yeah, you got 2 minutes left. I'm on 95 minutes, so we'll keep everybody posted. So I don't know, Man U in 6th place on 29th points. I have no idea how their season's going to end up, but like I said, sometimes you just got to get a win, no matter how ugly or awful it was, and that was what it was for them. By the way, earlier today, I mentioned it earlier, Sunderland and Leeds tied 1-1. Adringa, the kid that they picked up from Brighton this year, the goal he scored was fantastic. I don't know if you saw that game. Really, really nice goal. Put in several really good crosses that probably should have helped Sunderland seal that game. But Leeds and Mr. Farke, I think he's starting to figure it out a little bit there. Lars. They weren't terrible today by any stretch of the imagination. They have not lost in a while. They haven't gotten a ton of wins, but they're collecting points, and they've gotten themselves out of the relegation zone. I think they're probably another team that you got to think probably will figure out a way to keep themselves out of getting dropped this year.
Yeah, bad news for West Ham. And again, I didn't see this due to the aforementioned rendezvous with Granny Sievertson, but I note with keen interest and curiosity that one Dominic Calvert-Lewin has kicked the ball into the goal again.
He did.
The Calvert-Lewin renaissance is Calvert's renaissance. I don't know. We didn't find a term for that. The Calvert-Lewin renaissance is happening again. And everyone who's wondered, like, for the last few years, what if that guy could actually kick straight? He would be a really good striker. I guess that is what's happening now.
Well, it's because every one of those goals is coming from an exactly straight line in the middle of the penalty area. Yet again, another goal that a very nice cross from Brendan Aronson, by the way, I believe I'm saying correctly. And Mr. Calvert-Lewin finishes from the middle of the field in that perfect straight line. If you've seen his shooting, his goal map, it's a perfect line of goals running vertically from the touch line. It's pretty cool to kind of see.
Honestly, like, if I'd have said this 3-4 months ago, people would have immediately called for the men in white coats. I think Dominic Calvert-Lewin, the English World Cup squad, it's not impossible.
I don't know, man. That's an interesting call.
It's not likely, but you know.
All right,
I know
Lars,
Ollie Watkins scored as well.
It is now official. Spurs have won at Palace 1-0 on an Archie Gray goal from just inches off the line. I had 2 other goals called back for offside. Come on, Lars. Spurs are back.
And they all count, except the ones that didn't. Listen, 3 points. Good stuff.
Spurs' next few games coming up. Let's take a look at those real quick before we go. The game at Brentford, as we mentioned, then they have Sunderland at home and finish up on a road game to Bournemouth. So kind of also an interesting, softer spot in the schedule for Spurs coming up. All right.
Yeah, maybe this is the turning point. I don't know. I've been on the call with you. I didn't watch the game as such, so maybe they were phenomenal and I just missed it. But the points are important anyway. I've
seen Spurs look pretty bad this season. I didn't think they were terrible today. Palace Palace would probably be the one that's concerned about that particular result. The obvious reasons. All right, Lars. Well, I know.
Yeah, just Palace, I guess. They're just kind of running out of steam. They have a small squad, busy schedule. Glasner leaving at the end of the season, almost definitely. So, the Palace thing was fun while it was lasting, but they're going to kind of slink back into mid-tableness now, I guess.
Yeah, they haven't won in a bit. They haven't been collecting points at all. They're on a three losses in a row. And coming up in their schedule, they have the game against Fulham. They go to Newcastle, and then they have Villa visiting at the end of all of this. So Glasner's got his work cut out for him, for sure.
At what point does Glasner do an Ange and just pivot to winning the European tournament they're in and just kind of tank the league? That's the interesting question here.
Hadn't thought about that. That may be, that is an idea for sure. Well, Lars, I appreciate you taking time from your holiday schedule to help record this and get the P1 something on the platter. And hopefully Andy and I are back next week. I think we're still waiting to figure out how the schedule works out, but hopefully we'll get to do a radio show next week.
Lovely to see you again. And as always, guys, because I'm not on your show that often, great to have you. And I'm so excited about this summer. So excited about coming to Dallas and hopefully, seeing a few of you in the flesh, dear listeners, as we did last time.
And I will always recommend to everybody, if you're looking for another podcast or to get more Lars, you should also go subscribe and follow and download the Lars Resort. It's a good time.
Oh, thank you. That's very kind of you, Peter.
Yes. Thank you, P1s. Like I said, hopefully Andy and I were back with a live radio show next week on Saturday. I don't know what time, if in fact it's going to happen. We'll let you know. But in the meantime, we love and adore you. Go on out there, get stuck in, and win your 50s.